Funding and support for scientific thinkers are provided in part by the Center for Emergent Materials and NSF MRSEC at The Ohio State University. This lesson is Edible Clouds, an earth science and space lesson taught by Scientific Thinkers STEM Outreach Program. There are two definitions that you'll want to introduce to the students after you introduce yourselves and explain what you're studying. And the first one is freezing point. And that's just the temperature where our water turns from liquid water to ice. And you can ask the kids what they think this temperature might be. So you can kind of phrase this as, so when does it start snowing? What temperature is it usually at? And the answer is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. You can also say in Celsius, this would be 0 degrees Celsius. The next definition you'll want to introduce is water vapor. And those are just water molecules that are freely dispersed through the air. Or it's the gaseous phase of water. And an example that you can introduce to the students is when you're boiling a pot of water, sometimes they'll notice this fog that's above the water line. And that is our water vapor because it's changing from liquid water to steam or water vapor. So this particular lesson is divided into two portions. Our first portion is a demonstration, the cloud in a bottle demonstration, and that should only take between 5 and 10 minutes. And then we have our edible clouds hands-on experiment, which should be the longer portion running between 40 and 50 minutes. So for the cloud in the bottle, you'll want to give some background on what a cloud is, and that's just a combination of water vapor, dust and pollen, and changes in temperature and pressure. And the students might think that clouds have sort of a feel to them, but in reality, clouds, you really can't touch them or feel them. They're sort of like almost like mist or steam. So the first thing you'll need for this experiment is a little bit of ethyl alcohol, and you'll only need just a tad to coat the inside of your bottle. The next thing you'll need is a balloon air pump, and this is what you'll be doing to change the pressure. And the last thing you'll be needing is an empty Coke liter or just any sort of durable plastic bottle. So the first thing you'll be doing is you'll take your empty liter bottle and a little bit of the ethyl alcohol, and you want to pour it in just so that you have enough to coat the inside of the bottle. And you'll see I'll be turning it around and shaking it a little bit, and you want to make sure that you don't have too much ethyl alcohol in the bottle and that your ethyl alcohol is very fresh, or else this experiment will not work. And we'll be taking the balloon air pump, and you can have one of the students help you with this portion, but you want to make sure that it's sealed tightly around the opening of the liter bottle, and you'll be changing the pressure inside. And make sure you're telling the students that when they're pumping the air inside of the Coke liter bottle, they're increasing the pressure inside. So when we have high pressure inside of our bottle, we don't see any clouds. It's still clear. So if pressure is too high on Earth, up in the atmosphere above us, then we're not going to see any clouds. It's going to be a nice, beautiful, sunny day, and we can see the blue skies. However, when pressure is very low, such as when we release our balloon air pump, we're going to see a cloud. And you can see I have a cloud inside of my bottle. You can kind of squeeze it out and see if a little bit of the cloud comes out, but I'm keeping it contained for now. And then what you can show the students is that when I go back and increase the pressure inside of my bottle, our cloud disappears. And you can keep this going and have the students each try to make a cloud in a bottle. Now, for this portion of the experiment, we're going to get a little bit more hands-on, and there are some preparations that you should make ahead of time. And this can mean portioning out some of the ingredients for each of the groups of students. And I would say you could have about 2 to 3 students per group. So I would have Dixie cups of each of these ingredients that I'm about to introduce. So the first thing the students will need to make their edible cloud is a cup of either half and half or a lactose-free milk. The second thing we'll need is some iodized salt, and that's to aid in the freezing portion of this experiment. So you'll need about half a cup. So I needed a plastic cup or Dixie cup and a measuring cup for this. Then you'll also need some sugar, and this particular experiment calls for 2 tablespoons of sugar. So you'll need a measuring spoon, and I used a plastic cup. And next you'll need a half a teaspoon of vanilla. And make sure you're portioning this correctly, because if you use a little bit too much vanilla, the edible cloud can taste kind of bitter. So very small amount in my plastic cup. And you'll also be needing sandwich baggies, a gallon-sized as well as 2 or even 1 plastic sandwich baggie. I just double bagged my edible cloud just in case it got one of the bags got ruptured or opened up. And then you'll also need spoons to portion out the edible cloud and for the students to eat their creation. And most importantly, you'll be needing some ice for the students. You might want to have a extra stash of ice in case there's some melting or the edible cloud needs to be a little bit more frozen. So once you have your students situated into groups, I would start by passing out the supplies needed to make the edible cloud. And what you'll need is your cup of half and half or non-dairy, and your 2 tablespoons of sugar, your half teaspoon of vanilla, and I'm using 2 plastic sandwich baggies. I'll also end up using an extra plastic cup for this. So what you need to do is take your extra plastic cup and your sandwich baggie, and I just did this for stability purposes, but I pressed it down into the cup so that there were no spills. And you just want your students to add in their cup of half and half. And once that's all in there, you can go ahead and add your sugar and your vanilla. And once that's done, you want to seal your plastic baggie as tight as you possibly can. And if you don't have 2 extra sandwich baggies, you want to make sure that this is super sealed. But I'm going to go ahead and double seal mine. So if there's any spills in the shaking process, hopefully our second baggie will catch that. And now we want to prepare our freezing bag, and you want to be super careful with this portion because this can be a little bit dangerous if it comes in contact with the skin. So make sure the volunteers are playing a big role in helping the students. So what you'll need to do is take your larger gallon-sized bag and dump in the ice cubes, I'm using about 2 cupfuls, and you'll also need your half a cup of salt. And once that's all mixed together a little bit, this is going to really help us with freezing our edible cloud. So take your double sealed or single sealed cloud mixture and have the students place it inside of the gallon size bag, and then assist them with sealing this bag, again, so that it's super tight to avoid any chances of spills. And once you've ensured that every group has their bag super sealed, you can start to shake it. And this is the most labor intensive process because it can take kind of a while for the cloud to freeze inside of the bag. So just have the students shake it up, take turns shaking it, adding more ice if necessary, and checking the texture of the cloud as you go. And you'll know your cloud is done when you sort of have this chunky, frozen, milky texture. And I'm using a non-dairy milk today, so that's why it might look a little bit different from yours, but it should be almost like soft serve ice cream. It won't be completely frozen solid, but as long as you're able to scoop it with a spoon and it's not too runny, you should be ready to portion. And have the volunteers do this part, and have cups placed out, and make sure that each student is getting an equal portion of the edible cloud. And now that we're done, the students can spend the rest of the lesson enjoying their creation. So for cleanup, you'll want to clean up all of your dirty dishes. You'll want to pour your salt and ice mixture down the drain, and you'll want to collect all the dirty cups and toss them. If you have any extra supplies, you can put them away, but for the most part, the students should be eating most of the supplies used. And then you want to put back the extra ethyl alcohol and make sure that's stored correctly, and put away all the demonstration materials. And once you're done, you're good to go. Thanks, everyone.